The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Fridays here at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Hope you're doing okay. We will dive in a recruiting-filled weekend. How will Nebraska do with some of their visitors? Looking at a cornerback, looking at a tight end, and many others. Nebraska adding a kicker. We'll dive into that. And we'll also get the lowdown on Nebraska's newest quarterback, Jalyn Gramstad, from his coach at Northwestern College, Matt McCarty. Going to join us in about 15 minutes or so, our chat with this whole process. So the good news for Nebraska, they're adding a really talented quarterback and leader in the room. The bad news, if you're a team that's played in 3 straight national championships, 2 out of those 3 years, Gramstad was your player of the year. You just don't walk down the road and replace that. But we'll spend some time with Coach McCarty here this first hour. In hour 2, Bill Doleman going to be with us, Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, the professor from SEC country. Then Brian Christopherson, BC, joins the show, and we'll check in with him on the recruiting weekend, some of the Nebraska additions to the roster, Husker247.com with BC. Elijah, you geared up for a weekend. I know you got College World Series action tomorrow and Sunday, and perhaps Monday we're back on the road. Monday we'll figure that out if there's a Game 3 necessary. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube, where you can watch the show, like and subscribe, follow along, all the updates and interviews and good stuff from not only our program, but good folks at Hurrdat Sports and all the press conferences you want to get caught up with across the multitude of sports with Nebraska athletics. Check out the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Follow us on the Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio for the radio show, at Herbal Essence for Elijah. He will no doubt have something clever and funny like you did last night with the Matt Rule 2-second. We're going to murder him.
We're going to absolutely murder you.
We're going to absolutely murder you.
Yeah.
And Elijah's like, yep, that's me and the fellas with a pitcher of beer after bowling. During bowling.
During bowling,
before
after a long week. There it is.
Yeah. So Cornhead Lager, grab a cold, frosty Cornhead Lager, get it going. We appreciate them being our sponsor here with Hail Varsity Radio. So we have I don't even want to call it a moral question to dive into that was brought up to the Board of Regents. It's been talked about on social media. Forgive me, I did not comb through the Board of Regents session yesterday. The $1.1 billion budget is what they're going to look at. But revenue streams. How do you create revenue streams? We'll tell you about one that may or may not be up your alley as a Nebraska fan. Sal checks in. Sal, good to have you. The real Matthew is in. Black Hills Brennan, married for a week. Big Cat, you and Tracy. Awesome. He has no races, so I guess I'm here. Brennan, good to have you. Crazy Spider Adventure is looking for his Uncle Jimmy. Crew is in. And then the 6th man, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, Jeff Snitley. We got to get the Snitley boys on at some point here this summer. And Elijah, you traveled out to the scene of the crime, or the moment in time, let me rephrase that, in Boulder, in the hotel when we were out there ahead of Colorado. So the Snitley boys need to stream in at some point. The other Dave is in. Good to have you. A-Dub, how are you, man? Thank you for checking in. NASCAR Eric is here. Good to have you. Jeff checking in. Coach Brandon is here. Justin, nice to have Justin back in as well. Michael is here. Anonymous is in. Tuck says what's up. Shane is here. Patrick, Moonbot early And then Rule the Day says happy Friday along with Scott. Robert, good to have you in. So we'll take more of your comments and thoughts with the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. So do you have the Husker fan in your life that you may have said goodbye to? They passed away. They've departed. Maybe there was a Husker pin. My old babysitter, Gertie Johnson. She was the best gal ever. Got to babysit me a couple days a week as a kid.
Her name was Gertie?
Yeah.
How old is she?
Oh, man.
Are we talking like the college student babysitter or like the 70-year-old lady babysitter?
This is Gertie Johnson, my babysitter. She lived in Southwood in Lincoln, and she never drove her whole life, okay? But she lived just over the hill from Ruth Hill Elementary, where I grew up near. And she'd walk and be there for us in the morning when my mom worked, and then be there for us in the afternoon. And Gertie and her husband Lee, from the moment Devaney stepped foot on campus until they just weren't able to travel anymore, went to every bowl game. I mean, they were clockwork, dude. Every bowl game, they were there. And she loved talking ball. And that's, along with my dad, a big reason I'm probably doing sports, right? So we'd watch old Nebraska games after school. And this is me, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. She watched us through 8th grade. And when we said goodbye to her, and Gertie's probably been gone 10 years. She lived till she was upper 80s, maybe mid-90s. But she was so sharp. And she just had the best voice. I mean, it would cut through a 70-mile-per-hour wind you're kicking into. She just, it wasn't Fran Drescher, but it was a big-time, well, that's Gertie. And when she was buried, she had a red corsage, and she had two old, like, Go Big Red buttons that were in her casket. And she loved Nebraska football. And lived that out and loved watching ball. My dad, big Nebraska guy, and he was a big reason as to why we were, going on trips. That was a family trip. What did we do for Christmas? Went to the Fiesta Bowl. We were very lucky to do that. I bring all this up to say, would you be in favor of this proposal by a board of regent? Husker fans who love all things Big Red eternal. The University of Nebraska may have a deal for you, and that would be to have the final resting place, like a crypt in or below Memorial Stadium, as a way to generate money. It'd be urns. It'd be some sort of mausoleum, and this won't move forward, but it was suggested. Think about the rest of your earthly remains being at the 50-yard line or in the south end zone, or you're posted up with other Husker fans and pictures of your Husker fandom along the tunnel walk. That's what this suggestion was. And Moonbot says, you know what? Do a brick.
Yeah.
Put a brick down with a name on it.
This, to me, feels...
This was even proposed to, Big Game Ted before he left for Ohio State.
I'm not a superstitious guy, maybe a little bit. I'm justitious, Mm-hmm. Feels like a great way to bring a curse down upon Memorial Stadium. Right? Is that just me?
How many folks have lived and died with Nebraska football over the years?
It's a great point. My suggestion here, instead of leaving your ashes, how about we get little placards on the seats that you can go by and say, this seat will forever be the Chris Schmidt seat. Once you're long dead and gone, this seat forever will have the placard on it. This seat is in honor of Chris Schmidt, or name your loved one who has since passed away. I like that idea. You can buy the rights to have the plaque on the seat without having, human remains in the stadium. And they'd be ashes, so it's a little bit different. But, yeah, I guess anything in the name of the bottom dollar and getting the athletes paid. If the money's going to the student athletes, I guess cool. But something about it just rubs me a little bit the wrong way.
Well, and Nebraska's fans are great. They're awesome. We get a chance to interact with them a ton on the road or at home or at shows or every day, 6 days a week. That being said, how much fun do we make of A&M for their dog burial ground outside, right? This is taking it a step further. And you could cross over from passionate fan base to crazed. And I just, there's probably a tongue-in-cheek take here. Anonymous chimes in, says, I've been to a funeral with a red balloon release at the burial, but that was for a former player.
I'm cool with that.
The late great Jack Pierce, who passed, it'll be a couple of years in August. Love Jack, just incredible for Nebraska athletics. Jack had rented and set up this giant big red bus to go to the cemetery in only Jack form. Scott says it sounds creepy. Names on tiles of the tunnel walk could go for big money. Again, Moonbot 7, I think the tile or brick is good. Mr. Snitley says keep goats and ashes away from Memorial Stadium. Does anyone know somebody who snuck in and spread mom or dad's ashes at the stadium? I think that's had to have happened before.
I'm sure. But my problem.
I'm looking to out any family.
But with getting the ashes, like a whole urn put in there, I think back to Star Wars. You know, the disturbance in the Force, a feeling of a million souls crying out at once and suddenly being silenced. What if Iowa comes to town, hits a walk-off field goal in front of the 10,000 people that have been laid to rest at Memorial Stadium? That's a high number, but like, that is a great way for your soul to never be at peace, I think, being at Memorial Stadium, watching a walk-off loss.
Wow. You truly want them to rest in peace and not torment. I hear you. I get you. Totally get it. But that was a proposal by a regent.
That being said, I am sure if this did get passed through with the Husker fans that I know, I'm sure it'd be extremely popular. I'm sure there would people that would want to be laid to rest at Memorial Stadium in that way. Just don't count me in.
This was Omaha Regent Barb Wheats listed the Husker faithful to make their permanent address inside. You listen to everything, and some ideas you just say, "Hey, thanks for your input," and you move on. No, I think
it's not a horrible idea.
No,
it's
think,
not. To be fair, not a horrible idea. The more I think about it, the more it kind of gives me the creeps.
Yeah, but I'll just counter it with saying it's not. It's sad your loved one's gone, but if they were that big a Big Red fan, who knows, man? If this ever were to move forward, there'd be some fans that would absolutely sign up for it. And families would be cool with it. It's about the departed's wishes.
Mm-hmm. What would your preferred resting place be, Schmidt? Have you thought about this?
I don't know, man. With Dad, we got him a really cool urn that's a cross, but we're toying with the idea of a Jack Daniels barrel, which we couldn't do. So I don't know, man. I don't think I want to be torched. I don't really want to be buried. I have not made the call.
I once went and we were visiting some family out in Iowa.
I've been told if I don't clean the dishes up, it won't matter by the lovely wife.
You'll be at the bottom of a river in a bag with a couple of 10-pound weights in there.
Right. Cement shoes.
I went to go visit some family in Iowa. This is probably over 10 years ago now. And we were seeing some of the loved ones who had passed away in some of the rural Iowa cemeteries. And my favorite cemetery we went to had a big old sign at the front gate that said, "Please call cemetery director at this number before digging." I'm like, that's my kind of cemetery right there. That's where I want to be laid to rest, where it's just my family members have to put me 6 feet under by themselves.
Do it yourself?
It was a DIY cemetery, I guess.
That's brutal.
But you had to call the cemetery director before you pulled the shovels out, and I'm like, that's my kind of cemetery right there.
No, I listen. And there used to be and maybe you still can get them, but there was the fad back in the day of team caskets, where you could get the inside of the casket with your favorite NFL or Major League Baseball team or something like that. The one thing that they packed with Sinatra was a little airplane bottle of Jack Daniels and a pack of Camels with a Zippo. I did read that.
That's pretty awesome.
Not to go super morbid on you, but this blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I think I'm going to side on the of hey, thanks for the idea, no thanks. So Dave checks in. I heard a story about someone spreading ashes, their father's ashes, on the field at Memorial Stadium. I haven't. Somebody's done that before. They've had to have done it.
There was a tweet that went around a couple weeks ago of a guy saying, if anyone reads this, my final wishes are to be scattered at Disney World, but no, I don't want to be cremated.
Wow. Anonymous does say there's the legendary longtime Husker fan, Husker Bob, who passed away in the stadium. I think it was a heart attack. They should put a marker down for Husker Bob. That's what he suggests. But we'll get more of your feedback. Moonbot says they priced Grandpa out of the game, so put him on the field. Matt McCarty joining us, head coach at Northwestern College. His take on Jalyn Gramstad. That's on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Let's check in with Northwestern College head coach Matt McCarty. He joins us to talk Jalyn Gramstad. And Coach McCarthy, it's wonderful to spend a few minutes with you on a Friday. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you making time. What has this process been like for you with Jalyn?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind over the last, week and a half, since he went to that camp, and just talking through things with him and try to guide him on what's best for him in this situation. And really just walk through that for him. What's everything look like, making sure he could get things done to make that work. I know he's really excited to get down there. Nebraska's always really been his dream school, and he's a phenomenal kid, so we want to do everything we could to make that happen for him.
Head coach with Northwest College, Matt McCarty, joining us. And Coach, how did this process kind of materialize? I know about the postgraduate camp at Nebraska, but with you and Jalyn, a stud ball player for you. So take us through the communication lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a unique situation. Kind of on a whim, Jalyn went down to that camp. And something he just wanted to try to kind of cross off the list that he did it. I don't think he knew it was going to go as well as it did. And, he got out of that camp and all of a sudden it kind of blew up on him of like, people knew who I was there and I did pretty good. So he immediately called and let me know what happened. And we talked through it. And the next morning I saw him. We visited again the next morning to say, hey, let's stay in touch. Keep me up to date on anything that happens. And then as soon as he got a call from Nebraska's coaches about the opportunity, we got together and we kind of talked through that, what it looked like, and just then tried to figure out what's the steps we need to take to make this work. Because again, yeah, it's an awesome opportunity for him. The kid's an outstanding leader. He's an outstanding kid. And so we wanted to do what we could to make it work for him.
I want to get into those leadership attributes, what makes him a winner here in just a second, but quickly take me through your emotions here, because there's the two sides of it. On one hand, it's the star quarterback that is leaving the school right before the season starts, but on the other hand, Power 4 Big Ten football is an opportunity that not many people get, and it's got to be great to see a player of yours develop in your program and get that opportunity to go play at a place like Nebraska. Can you take me through the two sides of that emotion for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is an awesome opportunity, and it's pretty exciting to see that. He's like I said, he's a special player, and when he gets on the field, he's dynamic out there, and he's such a confident player and has great leadership attributes. It's been a whirlwind of emotions. Yeah, it is. It's been both sides of the spectrum. Super excited for Jalyn. Extremely happy for him. And it's tough. It's like you're losing the starting quarterback, National Player of the Year. the kid's 27-1 as a starting quarterback for us, and has really been a 4-year starter for us. He started 2 years on defense before that. So just a real big piece of our puzzle. And then it's June 20 on top of that, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But on our side, as we talk about it, as our staff has talked through it, one of the things we talk about with our players all the time is our job is to help you guys be your best. We want to love you guys and help you guys develop and be your best. And this is such a unique opportunity that, for us to help Jalyn make this transition, it's an opportunity for us to really, mean what we say. What we do when he can't help us anymore really shows who we are, I think. And I think for us, we wanted to show Jalyn, hey, we're behind you. We love you. We want to see you get this opportunity. And so we did what we could to make it work for him. But, the guys that we have coming back, we've got a great group coming back. I know the guy that steps into that position next will be surrounded by great players. And so it's just going to be another great opportunity for that person.
Head coach at Northwest College, joining us on Hail Varsity Radio, Matt McCarty, as Jalyn Gramstad is going to go to Nebraska. That's been the news. And a couple weeks ago, we heard Jalyn's name, that he impressed at the camp. Things we fast forward to this week, and he's leaving your program and joining Nebraska. And Coach, I think you nailed it with kind of your mantra and what your team stands for, where you do want folks to perform at the highest level on and off the field, and your support is super impressive. I mean, you're backing your words, and that is to be commended. That being said, I want to go back to when Gramstad got to Northwest, and how did you find him? Let's hear the backstory about when he joined your program.
Yeah, so it's kind of unique. So he grew up in Leicester, which is a small town. Not many people have probably really heard of it. We went to West Lyon High School, which is the same place that I went to high school. So it's kind of unique. I went to high school with Jalyn's parents. So I've known the family. I've known him for a long time. Followed him. His older brother actually played defensive end for us as well. So they played together for a couple of years on the team. And when we recruited Jalyn, he's such a great competitor. He's a winner. He won a high school state championship. And that's really attractive, just the way that he competes. He was a great basketball player. He was a great baseball player. It's just something about the kid. And once we got him on the team, we had a quarterback at the time when he joined us that was the National Player of the Year. And so we had to figure out a way that Jalyn could help us. And he was too good of an athlete, too good of a competitor to not be on the field. And so about midway through his freshman year, we approached him about switching to defense. Could you help us in the secondary? And Jalyn jumped at it, and he moved over. He played some corner for us, became a starting corner for us that year. Had an interception in our quarterfinal win that year. And as we got to the national championship, his freshman year, we played the national championship game, and we had some injuries in the semifinals, unfortunately, but Jalyn started the national championship game as a freshman, really at Sam linebacker, kind of our nickel position for us, and did an outstanding job on defense, played defense the next year. That quarterback had graduated then, and then Jalyn was pretty adamant he wanted to move back to quarterback. And we really, that was tough because he was our best secondary player at that time. And so we were like, yeah, go ahead, give it a shot. We'll move you back there. And he didn't start the first 4 games. He rotated in a little bit, was pretty dynamic when he came in the ball games. And it's kind of like, all right, this kid's pretty special. And then once he took over, things really changed for us that season, and he led us to a national championship. And we had won, I think, 29 straight games or 27 straight games with Jalyn at quarterback, and finished 27-1 as a starter. This year in the national championship game, we came up a little bit short, but we were down 17-0 in the second half of that game, and Jalyn rallied us back to be 24-21 in the fourth quarter, and gave us a shot to win that game. And the kid's just an ultimate competitor. He's got this aura about him that he's going to make it happen. And the guys around him believe in him. And it's pretty special. He just makes everybody around him better, which is pretty special to see.
Coach McCarty with us here on Hail Varsity, Northwest College, and Jalyn Gramstad off to Lincoln. Coach talking a little bit about his player that has departed, and when it comes to personality of Gramstad, you've laid out the athleticism, the it factor on defense as a young player, the impact on offense as a dual threat. Is he a leader when it comes to just by actions, or does he have the ability to be pretty vocal?
I'd say it's both. I think the way he prepares, the way that he practices, he really pushes the guys around him. He sets the tone. He's going to make sure that he's taking care of business and how he does things. And it raises the bar for the guys around him. He has this confidence about him that you can recognize that things are going to get done. We're going to be successful. And it's unique because it's not arrogance, but he's just a cool, calm confidence in him. And he's willing to be vocal and make sure guys are going in the right direction. But his leadership ability, he's probably, I've coached for 20 years now at Northwestern, and Jalyn's one of the best leaders I've ever been around on either side of the football. Just makes those guys around him better.
Coach, what do you think he could bring to a quarterback room where we know here in Nebraska he's walking into a tough spot? You have 5-star Dylan Raiola coming in. He's the presumptive starter. You got Gramstad coming in, maybe a depth piece. What do you think he would bring to a quarterback room if he's not the starter?
I think the maturity that he'll bring to that room, they've got a young quarterback room. I'd value that maturity and that leadership, and somebody that's played in tough situations, that's played in big games, that knows how to prepare and handle things. I think those are valuable things that he can bring to that room, and those guys can learn from him. Those guys are great football players, but I think Jalyn's got some experience that, hopefully they can learn from them, and he can make that room better.
That topic of experience, what is your method? Yeah, guys got to play, but what's the sign to you that they're ready to get that shot? And then, okay, if it doesn't go so well, the bounce back part to move on from maybe not performing as well as a young player.
Yeah, it's tough because you do want to give young guys opportunities, and you have to give kids opportunities to fail. I think you can learn. If you try to protect them too much, they never really get to grow. And so you have to give them opportunities to fail and push themselves. And you hope that happens in practice. You hope that competitiveness in practice is there where, they're failing, but they're learning and they're stretching themselves. And, it's a fine line to walk really as a coach, because, you want to be competitive on Saturdays. You have to be able to win and compete on Saturdays. So you've got to put your best foot forward, and finding that right mix. The unique thing sometimes with football is the most talented group. You put out the 11 best, most talented players. Sometimes isn't the best group. There's different dynamics that play, and sometimes there's pieces that make the group better, and that's your best group. And trying to figure that out each year is one of the fun challenges, I guess, of coaching.
Coach, really fast here before we get you out. You going to be able to make it to Lincoln to catch a Husker game with Gramstad at quarterback? I know it's a busy season as you're on the road back to Durham, but you looking at that? You looking ahead at the schedule and seeing maybe I can make it out to Lincoln?
Honestly, I guess I haven't yet. We do have a mid-season bye, so maybe there's an opportunity there. Hopefully we put ourselves in position to have a bye in the postseason, so maybe there'd be an opportunity there. I guess I haven't looked at the Huskers schedule yet. The nice piece is it's not a bad drive. It's pretty close. But yeah, it would be fun. I'm super excited for Jalyn. Just in the conversations he stopped by the other day before he took off for Lincoln, and talking through it with him. And, I know that he'll be fine. He's going to do great because it's who he is. It's how he does things. So yeah, it'd be fun to get down there and check that out.
Coach McCarty, what's his emotion? I mean, there's got to be excitement, but what was the emotion with you and him?
Yeah, we've developed a pretty good bond. Like I said, I've known him for a long time. And it was one of those where, really excited for him, but also tough to see him leave because of just the impact that he's had on our program. And he's a kid that you want to have around your program. And so, it is a little emotional because, you're going to miss that kid, but also at the same time, super excited for him. And I know he's got great things ahead of him. I know he wants to get into coaching down the road. The kid's going to be a phenomenal coach. And so the opportunity, the doors that may open, it's something that he has to chase.
Did you have any interaction, correspondence with Nebraska at all?
No, I have not. So I have not chatted with them at all. They're getting a great kid.
with your career, Coach, 81-19, you mentioned that 27-1 run you had, 8-10 winning percentage in the GPAC. You started as a defensive coordinator. You've been the head coach since 2015. Tell me a little bit about your mentors and what kind of wound your clock, so to speak, in the coaching world. You were a really talented player defensively for Northwestern as well.
Yeah, my coaches, I guess the coaches that I've had, it goes back to high school. Like I mentioned, Jalyn and I went to the same high school. Coach Roseboom at West Lyon High School has been extremely successful, one of the most successful programs in the state of Iowa. And so it really goes back to, he's still continued to be a great mentor for me. And then just the coaches that I played for at Northwestern. And really right now, a lot of the coaches up and down our hallways, I'm blessed to be Northwestern. Our athletic department is extremely successful across the board. And so we've got great coaches around us, and they're great to learn from. And the one thing that's awesome is I get to work with great athletes here, great kids. Our recruiting base is within a few hours. We'll get down into Nebraska, but really a few hours of Northwestern is our recruiting base and what our roster is typically made up of. There's great kids that come from great programs and great communities. And for us, it's awesome to be able to work with those kids. They're blue collar, tough kids that do things the right way. And it's a lot of fun to work with them.
Coach, three straight national championship game appearances. You won in 2022. You mentioned the recruiting base. Looking at your 2024 class, you hit, I think, 3 or 4 kids in the Omaha metro region. I think Elkhorn North, Gross, and I'm forgetting the other couple of schools. But, yeah, you hit a lot of the Dakotas. You hit a lot of Iowa. You hit a lot of Nebraska. And with the success of your program, I mean, it's pretty good brand walking into some of those high school guys, I'd imagine.
It's definitely helped. And that's where, getting into Omaha recently, it's been really good for us. There's great football down there. And really the small schools, we've got a ton of small school kids. And Jalyn's an example of that. There's really good football players that maybe they get overlooked because they didn't go to a camp in high school, or they're just from a small school. And those kids really flourish. There's some really good athletes. Sometimes they just develop when they get to be 20, 21 years old. And so now, but now we've been able to reach into Sioux Falls a little bit more. We've been able to reach into Omaha a little bit more. And that's big. And we've got, a quarterback coming from Millard West. We've got a quarterback from Omaha Gross. We've been into Elkhorn North the last couple of years. That's huge for us as we continue to grow and just continue to kind of just stretch ourselves and get better. But there's awesome kids in these small towns that are around throughout Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, and stretching to Minnesota. There's awesome kids and awesome football players around there.
What's a quarterback need to play quarterback for you from a skill set? I look at Jalyn's numbers, not only incredible completion percentage, phenomenal touchdown to interception ratio, 3,500 yards, but he's also running. I mean, that dual threat. So tell us what your quarterback looks like.
Yeah, with Jalyn, our last 2 quarterbacks have been really good dual threat quarterbacks. And I mentioned the quarterback before Jalyn, has every one of our school records as a quarterback, was another dual threat guy, was also a national player of the year. But, for us, the ability to run the quarterback is huge. I think it gives you great numbers in the run game offensively. And so we like that dual threat, but a decision maker is really big. We try to put great athletes around him. In the last 5 years, we've had 3 receivers that career-wise have won over 4,000 yards, 3 different kids. And so distributing the football, you don't have to make – every throw doesn't have to be a great throw. You just have to make the right throw. And we've got some good running backs around him. And so for that, it's just distributing the football, make good decisions. And there's going to be times when you have to win the football game. You got to find ways to go win that football game.
Coach, before we get you out of here, what's coming up for you over the next month and a half or so? I know you're opening the season in the house that Tom Osborne built out in Hastings. You're on the road back to Durham. I see the hardware over your shoulder in the back of your office. I'm sure that's a daily reminder. What's coming up for you over the next month and a half or so as you get geared up for your season?
Just finishing up our summer workouts. We've got a group of guys, and I think they're excited for Jalyn for this opportunity, but it's also one of those that's been like, all right, we've got, we returned 10 starters on defense. We got, 7, 8 starters back on offense. we've got a really good group, a core group of guys back. And so now it's one of these things where it's like, all right, the attention to detail over the summer has been heightened. Their preparation has been really locked in, which is awesome to see. And so just finishing up our summer workouts as we get to start fall camp. And then, for us, our focus is kind of unique. I guess our focus is off season. Our mantra has been next all the time. And that was really because, losing that championship game, not dwelling on that, but focusing on what we're doing next. And we kind of have to live that out now again. Jalen's leaving, but we can't worry about that. We've got to focus on next, getting the next guy ready, getting the next kid ready to play. Whoever steps into that position will have a great group around him. We'll have a great defense on the other side of the football. And our expectation is to do things at a championship level and hopefully put ourselves in position to get back to Durham.
Coach Matt McCarty with us, Northwestern College, Jalyn Gramstad to Lincoln. And, Coach, appreciate your time and just the candor today talking about this experience with your player moving on to Lincoln. Great support for him and his teammates, of course. And best to you this season as you go for another championship. Thanks so much for joining us here on Hail Varsity.
Absolutely. It's fun visiting with you guys.
Good to spend time with Coach Matt McCarty and Northwestern College. Class act. That wouldn't be real easy, honestly, to have your Player of the Year 2 times over and your national championship winning quarterback take off on you, but you got to support the kid's dream and wanting to play at a higher level. Coach has done that, and Nebraska's got a fantastic competitor in that quarterback room. The other Dave, the other Brian, forgive me. The other Brian's asking about the linebacker race for Dawson Merritt. We got Brian Christopherson to talk some recruiting here in about 30 minutes or so. Well, the way things are trending today, Elijah, for Dawson, our friend Greg Smith, national recruiting analyst with Rivals, has put a prediction in for Alabama. I know Tim Verghese also that way, and Nebraska's done everything in their power. They just have not had they didn't have the last visit like Bama did, so we'll see, but it looks like a Bama lead right now. That's my update for you, Brian. Thanks for the question. We'll wind down hour 1. It's Hail Varsity powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, this first hour, Hail Varsity Radio powered by Cornhead Lager. Scott chimes in on the Coach McCarty interview. Says McCarty sounds like a solid coach. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what came across to us as we had a chance to talk with him. Brian Christopherson next hour as we'll check in on recruiting. Nebraska, Elijah adding a kicker, John Hull from Southwest, redshirted at Iowa Western Community College. More competition in that kicker room. One of the names, aside from Chase Lofton, this weekend for Nebraska's final official visit weekend or recruiting weekend before the dead period. Sire Wright. Nebraska got to be in pursuit if it's a fit for that former high-profile, high-projected commit to USC that got into the portal. And we'll see if Nebraska can land him with a need at that corner spot. You've got bodies. You have Wright that brings experience. So pretty big weekend.
A pretty big weekend. Obviously, the news of the day, though, is Dawson Merritt with a lot of crystal balls. I think that's a trademark term. I'm going to use it anyway. A lot of crystal balls floating out there. Projections for Dawson Merritt. A little bit disappointing because of that potential that you had with the 1-2 punch of Merritt and Christian Jones.
Still got to get the other.
You still got to get the other.
Jonesy's still.
That's where I was going to go with this, is you still have a guy in your backyard that is highly touted in Christian Jones and also has the world of college football trying to come and get him. I know Oklahoma and Auburn are the two right now that are hot on his heels. Nebraska's right there. It'd be wrong to call it a consolation prize because it shouldn't be that at all. Christian Jones is for a lot of people, a crown jewel in a recruiting class, especially
he's a must get. Jones and Lofton are two guys you can't let leave the state. And it's not that Nebraska's they've done everything they can. You've just got high-level, high-profile programs coming in. Nebraska hasn't won yet.
And I asked that question to Tim on Monday, like, what would a Merritt and Christian Jones recruiting class be to you? And he's like, it's waves nationally because of who wants them and the message it sends. So I want to caution Husker fans from feeling too disappointed about the Merritt news, because you still have a guy in Christian Jones that you're going hard after, and he's a guy that could extend his recruitment out into the season, waiting to see what some of the results look like. We'll see. Merritt never wanted to do that, and as we also know in recruiting right now, it's never over until it's signed on the dotted line. So if you look at it from a 17-year-old's point of view, from the outside looking in, it's hard to say no to Bama.
I'll say this. Bama's done a hell of a job because there is transition. There's doubt that they can stay where they've been in this new SEC world. It's been Georgia's world. And Kalen DeBoer, wasn't that long ago, he's dominating NAIA, much like Coach McCarty has been doing. And you got to just scour the earth for really good football players. You have Will Hawthorne, linebacker out of Iowa, that Nebraska's in on this weekend as well to bolster that second level. Reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. The driver has one job, that's to drive. This message from the NDOT, Highway Safety Office. What does the week in SEC country look like for one Bill Doleman? We'll get his take on the happenings around Husker Nation. Brian Christopherson also in hour 2 at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Doleman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
It is time for the pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, the professor. It is Bill Doleman coming to us hunkered down in SEC country. At Bill Doleman on Twitter, your man on the Average Joe Sports Show podcast. Billy D, how is down south treating you? What's the week been for you, man?
Hot. It's just hot down here. I will give you that. Matt Rule was talking yesterday at his press conference about, the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten, playing in November when it's, cold up north and not so cold down south. Yeah, there's a big difference once you get down here. So I can see what he's talking about. There's, how would those teams fare if they had to play regularly up north every now and then? They don't have to.
They do not. Anything grab you from Rule yesterday?
It was just typical Matt Rule. The guy says everything right for the most part, and I don't mean that to be over the top. He just, he is so good with the media. He's done a great job of having, members of his staff fill in. I think, it's been nice that people have got a chance to meet, the various members of Nebraska's, 55, 60-member football staff. But I think you need to mix in a little bit more football when you do have a chance to meet those people. So, but look, it's a typical kind of off-season deal, defending their scouting and what they're doing at camps. And he certainly loves himself some Elliott Brown, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I think that guy's got his own payroll NIL deal going or something.
He does a good job at camp, and when we were heading out to Boulder, I was able to I sat next to Lance as we were flying out of Lincoln to Denver. So good to get caught up with him. It had been a while since I'd seen Lance, but no, Elliott's been big time and helped the program. What do you think of the Jalyn Gramstad addition? We talked with his coach, Coach McCarty, in hour 1, and bittersweet situation for that guy, but super supportive. And this sounds like it's not just a nice Rudy story. It sounds like this dude can play.
Yeah,
or at least push the room.
Yeah, look, it's depth in the room. Probably one of those guys that is pretty savvy. Maybe that extra set of eyes and generational language that that Kalen and Raiola may understand a little bit better than Glenn Thomas to a certain extent. Just another guy that can be a mentor in the room. But it's a Rudy story, and it's a good off-season summer story for people like us, that can take up. Let's see how many segments can we get out of this guy. Thankfully, the coach was very he was a terrific interview. I mean, how do you not now become a fan of Northwestern, right?
Northwestern College.
Just terrific. I like the fact, hey, are you going to be able to get a chance to come down to a game? Yeah, I might try and do that. What college football coach above the NAIA Division 2 or 3 level is going to say, I might take a weekend off and go check out a game someplace else? You could never ask that of Matt Rule or anybody in the SEC or the Big Ten or the Pac. Never mind the AC. Never mind the Big 12. They're not taking a Saturday off until after signing day in February, right? But I thought there was something endearing about hearing him, talk about the guy and his school. And I've got a weekend off. Sure, it might be kind of fun to go to a game in Lincoln. I'm guessing they might be able to find him a pass and he'll get a picture with Rule. Look, I thought it was a nice, endearing conversation. But unless Dylan Raiola has a malady with his lower leg and Heinrich Harburg has a problem with a collapsed lung because he gets hit, and that's when Matt Turman 2.0 is going to take the field. He's a great story for play-by-play guy announcers like us, that when he gets in and it's 52-7 on September 9th, and he comes on and he trots onto the field, and then the play-by-play guy says, I'm going to get to use that story. Now here, and it'll begin it with, here's a guy. That's how it all begins. So it's a terrific story, and he'll be a very good story in fall camp. But look, I think he's just a generational mentor to those guys who are going to be playing 99.5% of the snaps.
Bill, I do want to briefly go back here to Coach McCarty, because you're right. Like, the way he handled it and the way he at least answered that question to us, like, indicative of what I would call a good football coach, to have the interests of his players at heart like that. Because the average coaching staff, and I think you should be able to hear this, would probably react something like this if their national championship winning quarterback were to leave and transfer somewhere else to go be a backup.
We're going to absolutely murder you.
I think that's what the average coaching staff would say. So,
hey, there are going to be coaches it's already happening, where coaches are recruiting players and saying, if you come to this group of, I hate those terms. I hate group of 5, power, whatever's left. The Mountain West, AAC or whatever, Conference USA, they're recruiting people and saying, look, if you come here, we will get you ready to spend the final 2 years of your college career in the Big Ten or the SEC. That's already going on. Now this guy can say, look, you come to Northwestern or a school like ours, you got a chance before your college career is done to get yourself a scholarship at the FCS level. And we even have one playing, at the University of Nebraska in the Big Ten. But it's already happening. At the whatever the FBS level we are, it's FB. They're going to have to change that, because the bowl system is going to be going away for the most part. That's not going to be the big reward for a good season, right? Because you're going to get down to maybe 20. It's all programming. ESPN still needs the programming, but to say that we're going to differentiate the FCS, the football championship subdivision, with the FBS, which is no longer going to have bowls be the primary goal, unless you're going to emphasize the BS part of it.
Fair enough.
That was clever. I see what you did there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's why I'm here.
Bill Doleman with us here down in SEC country, talking some Big Red football. Bill, to switch gears, what we started the show off with, this was proposed at the Board of Regents yesterday. How about that revenue stream? And it was actually suggested to Teddy Ballgame before he left for Ohio State as part of that $450 million stadium project for Nebraska, and that is to have the final resting place of your loved ones at Memorial Stadium, either underneath or a little bit of a mausoleum type setup on the tunnel walk. And we make fun of A&M fans sometimes for the dog graveyard outside Kyle Field.
Right.
And Nebraska fans are awesome.
That's true, by the way. People need to know that the Dead Reveillees, and it's not a band, the Dead Reveillees are buried outside of the North Stadium at Kyle Field, and they are buried in a way in which they are watching toward the field. Mm-hmm. They're not buried on their backs. They're buried with their heads toward Kyle Field and at the scoreboard that they put up for them, all right? It's not a band.
Welcome to Psychoville, and Finkel's the mayor.
I don't know if they were included in the George Strait attendance, but nevertheless, they're there.
They got to watch the show. But this is a bridge too far. That said, there's been loved ones we would think, or there's urban legend that, mom or dad or grandpa's ashes were spread at the stadium, snuck in.
There has to have been people with holes in their pocket, and they
did the Andy Dufresne.
Yeah. Look, that's had to have happened. I just don't think that we need to be promoting that as the final resting alternative. Look, here's the problem. I love my friends and I love you guys, but I would trust you to be more like Walter dropping Donnie's ashes in the ocean,
right?
A Memorial Stadium on a windy day.
The wind would blow back and cake us all. Yeah.
Right. You guys are going to walk in with my Folgers can and end up walking out wearing me. And I don't think that's really what I want to have happen.
No.
Then you're dropping down a Maytag, and it's just, come on.
Tongue in cheek, of course, but
do you worry about the...
It's a big Lebowski reference for those of, not
we
quite generationally up to speed on one of the greatest cinematic moments in the history.
Shut up,
Walter.
Bill, to get back to...
My friends would do that, though. I could just see, we're going to do it today. It's pretty windy out. Let's just go ahead and do it.
Bill, to bring it back to seriousness here, if people's final resting place is in Memorial Stadium, do you worry about spirits?
Apparently the wrong ashes were spread the last 15 years.
Yeah, maybe that's what's happened. Maybe that's the reason for it.
There's the two sides. There could be bad spirits, or there could be angels in the outfield type moment.
Yeah. Maybe we don't chance it. I would say that if there's some maybe former football coaches who could have their final resting place somewhere nearby, but no, I'm not thinking that's
you're not feeling
a great
it.
thing. Look, one of the great memorials at Memorial Stadium, right? Other than everything that honors the servicemen and women who have honored our country, is when you go into the press box and there is the large plaid, green, red, navy blue sport coat. I don't remember all the colors of Don Bryant. Yeah. Right? You get off the elevator on level 6, and there it's the Don Bryant Memorial Press Box, and they've got one of Fox's codes that he wore to games. That's a fitting tribute, and maybe that ought to be it.
Yeah. So you're among the let's sell bricks / tile with Grandpa Ivan's name on it versus
and I'm not
waving
even
at Grandpa.
I'm not sure I want to send the ashes down to Endicott Clay Products, suburb of Fairbury. I don't think I necessarily want to send the ashes down there and have them put in the brick either. I mean, just
do the brick as a memorial.
I say keep
or even do a wall.
Keep it even simpler. Let's put little plaques on seats. People can have a seat in Memorial Stadium named after their loved one for a small fee of $10,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but then you're going to be sitting on. I don't know. I think that there are other revenue streams Nebraska fans can come up with.
Beer.
That's been a big thing. Have you seen all the different colleges advertising the cheapest beer in college football?
$3 for who?
It was $3 for Tulane, I think, and then $2 for, was it Louisiana Lafayette?
Yeah.
$2 Natty Lights.
You need
Yeah,
them.
but how much is a Hurricane at Tulane? They bringing those in from
Bourbon.
From one of the bars on Bourbon Street.
Now, BYU's advertising the coldest chocolate milk in college football.
The least decaffeinated Diet Coke you can find, which is awful, by the way, on that campus.
Decaf Coke. We're going to have to go talk to the honor code. We had a cup of coffee.
There's other ways to bring in a little bit of money than I think worrying about the afterlife.
Open the sports book at the stadium.
How about this? Look, there are other ways to sell our souls in college football than to have our souls rest at Memorial Stadium, okay?
I love that. You just given us our title, Selling Our Souls.
Yeah.
So, Bill, to wrap here, big weekend of recruiting, and how long do you think Nebraska will have to keep fighting the good fight for in-state kids?
Well, forever. Look, as long as guys like
flip
Steve
and start
Horn
winning, if they start winning at a high level, do you think it's going to be as difficult? Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think it's going to be. No, I'm not going to say it's going to be as difficult, but I think the tide has started to turn already, and I don't mean that pun intended with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think that there's enough attention now that people in Omaha and the prospects in Lincoln and the Carter Nelsons of outstate Nebraska are saying, you know what, I think they got it going on there and I want to be a part of it, as opposed to, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, it's like, I don't want any part of that. I want to be cool and go outside for school. But I think that you're going to start to see where Nebraska is going to have, 5 to 10, and maybe it's already there, 10 solid high-level Division I prospects. And Nebraska is going to probably get them at a 70 to 80% clip. There's always going to be a couple of guys like the kid from Platteview that's going to go to Stanford. Okay, I get it. Fine. I don't know who you're going to play against. You're not even in the ACC anymore for the time being. But that's always going to happen. Just as there's going to be kids from Miami who are going to say, I'm not going to go to the U or Florida. I'm going to go to Nebraska. And I want to get out of this. Mm-hmm. And the people are going to say, how dare you? Well, this is where I want to go, and this is where I'm going to be, at home and happy. But I think Matt Rule and his staff have done such a good job that if you're going to get 70 to 80% of those 10, that's a pretty good year. And, if the kid that the linebacker is going to go to Alabama, okay. But I think Christian Jones is the big one. If they get him, that'll be really disappointing. But it can't be for lack of effort. They've certainly given lack of effort, and I think prior to this regime, you could certainly say the effort was not there.
No, the effort's been great. We'll see if Nebraska can hold on and maybe close the gap on some of these other prospects. Bill, what's the weekend look like? About 20 seconds.
That's a really good question. So, I'm in my summer teaching mode. I'm getting pretty used to that. Yeah. So one day blends into the next. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get up and listen to the Hail Varsity Saturday morning show and see how it longs for you guys to actually say goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. You'll start
the record so far is 32 minutes from, well, good to have you with us. We'll see you. And then Cranack starts in on something. Yeah. So
Bill, be good. Appreciate you much.
Go Big Red.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Big recruiting weekend before the dead period sits in. Let's say hi to Brian Christopherson, BC, joining us. It's at Husker 24/7 BC with Husker247.com. BC, what do you know, man? Happy Friday.
Doing pretty well. I don't know a lot. That's pretty usual, though, so we should just proceed because that's my normal routine, not knowing a lot. But I'll try to pretend that I do.
Well, we know there's quite a few important visitors. One last hurrah for Nebraska with some official and unofficial visits. We know Nebraska's got another name in that quarterback room in Jalyn Gramstad. That's been kind of progressing and then became reality this week, but saw that Nebraska also added, let's start here because I know we've talked a lot about, all right, how's the offensive line going to be? What's the secondary look like? Quarterback room, but Special teams, my friend, kicking, specifically field goals. Nebraska adding another kicker for 2024, John Hall. Remember watching him and covering him, doing some of his games at Southwest, redshirted at Iowa Western, and Nebraska just keeping with that competition theme.
Yeah, why not, right? I mean, you want to keep the pressure on guys to perform. You want to have options if you need them. And you've got kids who are from here who want to be a part of it right now. I just think there's sort of it feels like it's going around a little bit where guys are like, I got to take my shot at it, with Nebraska. I like what I'm hearing from Rule and the staff. They make it an attractive place to, take on your opportunity. And also it's been shown that, in that first year, they let some guys who are walk-ons and stuff like that, they showed up and got big roles. I mean, John Bullock, we can forget about this, but John Bullock was not anybody that we were talking about, like, in January of last year. And then suddenly in the spring, he's like the story, and, a walk-on kid who built himself up through the program, and he really took off under this staff. So there's examples like that in front of guys where they're saying, you know what, they're going to give me a chance. I'll get my shot to compete. That's all I can ask for. I want to see what I'm made of at that level. And obviously, I think everybody's hoping, and I think there's belief within the program that Tristan Alvano is going to improve. He's shown in his high school career what he's capable of with that big leg. But, it's always, like I say, good to have someone else who's at the ready if you need them.
It's Brian Christopherson here with us on Hail Varsity Radio, talking some special teams. And is kicking, I shouldn't say it's the biggest concern, because I think it is, by all accounts, the biggest concern going in. But in terms of the actual impact to a day-in, day-out football program, what is your concern level in the kicking? I guess when you put it in the grand scheme of an entire 22-man roster of guys that are actually playing, how big is the concern of kicking, if you get what I'm saying there?
I do. It's a good question. It's not, it's not one of those things I think most people sit up at night thinking about, but there is that thought when you see Nebraska's slogan for the off season is chasing three, right? With all the documentary stuff. And quite literally that's the job there, to hit those three that went missing in some key spots last year. And of course, I think the spring game sort of got people a little more anxious about it because Tristan pulled a couple, and from all accounts had been having a very solid spring up until that point. But that's what people saw. And so I understand why there's sort of some nervousness when you go back to last season. And, you think about the Iowa game before that Iowa had that kick with the wind at its back that inched over the crossbar. People might remember Tristan had a shot. It was a tough kick with the wind conditions, but it's 40-some yards. And it's in that 40 to 49-yard range where he's got to become that dude who's sort of money, because there are going to be a couple games probably this year that come down to a kick. I mean, this league is becoming more and more, college football is becoming more and more like the NFL, wouldn't you say, guys? I mean, these games there's parity. They're going to come down to the last couple minutes. We've even got the 2-minute warning coming into play. You're just going to have more of these situations than we were used to growing up, Schmidt and me at least, where there's going to be games decided by, can this guy hit a 48-yarder to decide happiness from sadness for the day? And so I think Tristan's a huge part of the conversation, and you just hope that spot he gets right when it counts. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got good coaching from, there's former Huskers who are working with him. So he's definitely putting in the work. It's just a matter of now, can you hit it when the pressure's on? If the kicking struggles continue into the season, Brian, do we know, does a live chicken, does that work for kicking struggles as well, or is that just baseball? I've never heard. Yeah, I don't know if I've picked up on that word for football, but why not? If you need to resort to it. You guys might know I'm a Vikings fan, and there was a great ad when John Randall, former Viking favorite of mine, was in his heyday, there was an ad where he cut out a little Brett Favre jersey and placed it on a chicken and chased him around his yard. And so if anything like that you could maybe connect to the Big Ten and is needed for Alvano or any of the kickers, I say do it if you got to. I mean, whatever it takes to chase those three, I would say.
That's the way to go, and it is. It is a 24-21, 27-24 weekend for about half the slate of the Big Ten. It's turnovers, it's field position, it's can you make a kick into the wind, and can you pin somebody inside the 10 and put a couple 3 drives together, and it's black and blue football, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what else is interesting, guys? Last year I was sort of drifting into that crowd that likes on kickoffs when you just fair catch it and take it at the 25. I'm sort of in that. I still am in that category. And this staff is not that way, and I can respect that, but it's different than I've kind of view it. And then, of course, the first game last year, people remember it was Ramir, I believe, who took it back, about 60, 70 yards against Minnesota, sort of set them up. But that was kind of an up and down sort of thing with field position, with their kickoff returns and things like that. So I'm curious if there's any strategy tweaks there. I'm not counting on that necessarily, but I'm interested in it. And then you got to have the return man part's going to be a big part of this conversation going forward. Ethan Nation was a guy who sort of did that. Ja'Cory Barney showed he could be pretty good. I think Garcia Castaneda could do it. But you got to have somebody who's just got incredible wits about him, doesn't fair catch it on his 4-yard line, get you those extra 10 to 15 yards. That's about chasing 3 as much as the kicks.
BC, I mean, there were 3 walk-offs, right, against Nebraska last year, Minnesota, Maryland, Iowa. I mean, think about that. And it feels like everyone else's kickers hitting the game winner, dude, like the last 5 years.
Yeah, they've been clutch as heck. And then, you heard Rule the other day say, he was thinking about, like, even the wind in the Midwest. Like, he's always been a defer, if you win the toss, take the ball second half, which I like because it gives you that chance to double a team up at the end of the first half, beginning of the second half with scores. That's not a bad strategy. However, he was pointing out, like, he'd watched Kirk Ferentz and, like, how he handles stuff with the wind, and it was a big deal for Iowa to have that wind at their back in the fourth quarter. And, that kick, it was only like 30-some yards or whatever, and it barely got over. I mean, it might have scraped the crossbar. That's a difference of having the wind at your back, and Alvano obviously didn't when he attempted his. So Rule's taking note of that, too, in ways he can help his special teamers. It's like the little decisions within the game like that sometimes end up settling the deal when it's like a 19-17 kind of game.
It's kind of funny. This is a random aside here. We've spent almost 10 minutes now talking about kicking, and at risk of having people change the radio sets here as we just continue on and on about kicking, I'm thinking back about all the walk-offs Nebraska's endured, and I think about, like, I know there's probably one I'm missing, but the one that stands out in my mind is Michigan State in the snow in, I think, 2018.
That's the one good one.
When you had but it's still a lame duck. It was a lame duck kick that barely made it through the uprights. Like, you have that one, and you compare it to all these Nebraska walk-off kicks where it just feels like they're 50-yard bombs that go straight through the uprights. And
Minnesota's was nuts. I mean, that dude drilled at BC to start the year.
Something about that just feels emblematic of the past decade of Husker football.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Nebraska hasn't caught many breaks when it's come to those late kicks, that's for sure. I think the Minnesota kicker who ended up having a really good year prior to that kick really was an unknown. And he, like Schmidt said, just nailed it. I think of a Wisconsin kicker back in the Riley era who hit the
Gaglione.
Yeah, he hit the goalpost. It comes down. You think Nebraska's got it. They finally caught a break on a kick, and lo and behold, he gets another chance to do it, and then he makes it. So you're absolutely right. Barrett Pickering's kick against Michigan State was like one of the highlights, but there haven't been too many of those since the great Alex kick in 2008.
You used all of your equity with the football almighty with Henry. Yeah, that thing was the stadium still shaking with that, and that was, my God, that was back in 2008.
Yeah, we're old.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the kicker that was a walk-on from the club soccer program. I think he made a walk-off.
Northwestern game.
Yeah, which is also a bit of a lame duck that happened to make it through.
See a hands. It's some
Lane McCallum. McCallum, yeah. I mean, Nebraska's gone through some things. I think they picked up a kicker. Well, maybe it was Lane. It was somebody else from Lead Belly. Somebody was working at Lead Belly down there and ended up being on the team within like the fourth or fifth game one of those years. So, yeah, Nebraska's searched a little bit at that kicking spot. I think Alvano can still be that guy to bring it full circle. I mean, I go back to that game he had as a senior at Westside State Championship. He's got that mentality where he can be that dude. Didn't all go his way last year. That's the way it sometimes goes at that position. We see it. It's very much like golf where, I mean, like a guy like Ricky Fowler disappears off the scene for a year and then suddenly he's like in the U.S. Open leaderboard the next year. So he can find it. He's got the tools, but he's got a big job. He's got to be on.
I did some research here. The walk-on from Lead Belly's Matt Waldock.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, thank you for that.
More kicking, well, maybe a little less kicking. We'll talk some recruiting, but Nebraska trying to shore up that 3-point money man in the kicking room. More with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 at BC Husker 24/7 on Twitter. It's where you can follow him. Really awesome to spend some time with him. And we'll continue on your Friday edition of Hail Varsity, and we're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Brian Christopherson's with us. A few minutes here, Hail Varsity Radio. Find BC on Twitter at Husker247BC, Husker247.com, of course. BC, Brunsey, and Schaaf do an amazing job with the coverage. Chase Lofton, the world wants him as tight end. He's taken his visit to Lincoln, the other in-state target. We've been talking Christian Jones. BC, what's your feel here on Lofton here? Because, I mean, Florida State seemed to go great, but I mean the whole world of college football's invaded the state of Nebraska for tight ends.
Yeah, I can't say I have a definitive I feel really good about it. I don't feel bad about it either. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that Nebraska gets this final visit because I think this staff excels at these type of weekends. And that's not me trying to kiss up or anything like that. I just really believe that. They have a good presentation, not just from the coaches who are always available throughout the whole 3 days, but, you got like Corey Campbell and Mitch Lewinsky over there, and then Kristen Coggin at Nutrition. She does, the presentation with like the cooking with the families and stuff, and it's just a big hit. And so, Chase obviously knows somewhat what to expect from Nebraska football at this point, having been around. But there is that extra layer where you get some, I think, information that sometimes even surprises in-state kids on these official visit weekends where it's a full 48 hours with the staff that sometimes can tilt you in the right direction. And it's not a slam dunk by any means. He's liked other schools. And maybe there's a little more pressure to get him after Ryman Ziebert, is going out west to Stanford and all that. But I think Nebraska's recruited him well, and he has said as much. So whatever happens, you put in the fight as best you can, and you take the result. And I think the thing I would say about this staff is they have not taken in-state guys for granted. It's not a deal where they're late to the party and then they lose out on the kid because of that, because they just came in with a token offer late. I don't think that's happening, and I think that guys in the state understand that. So if a guy decides to go elsewhere, it's just like him wanting a different scene, and sometimes that's what a guy wants, and you can't do anything about it, so we'll see.
Brian, really fast, can you discuss in your eyes the importance of the tight end in a modern offense? We've seen it a little bit with Iowa, even though at times their offense is still stuck in 1994. Yeah. You still see the importance of the tight end. You see it in a lot of teams in the NFL. In terms of Nebraska, what do you think the importance of the tight end is as they enter kind of the modern college football under Matt Rule, that balanced mix of run and pass? What's the importance of tight end in your eyes?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting you bring up Iowa, not just because they've obviously had this great run of tight ends, but when I was a kid, I think back to like Hayden Fry, and he used to like stand up as tight ends and sort of this old-fashioned formation, and it was kind of stodgy, and I was just like, man, that's like stuck in 1960. And then that very school becomes the program that's just producing them left and right since then. But it does show how it's evolved, obviously with Gronk and Tony Gonzalez before that. But it's just become like a position a lot of kids want to play because they realize like offenses now are going to want guys who, okay, you can line up like a wide receiver in some formations. We'll put you in the backfield on some other ones. We're going to let you line up like you're a tackle at times if you're up for that. There's like 3 or 4 different like positions you're almost playing in one. And so I think there's a lot of kids now growing up where maybe, 25 years ago it wasn't the cool position to play. Now very much it is. Like it's a money position. So you got to have versatility there. I think Nebraska, that's why people keep saying, man, they're recruiting a lot of tight ends. Well, you're using them in all sorts of different ways. Like you're using like a Janarian Bonner, for example. He can go out now and be a wide receiver type / tight end and block on the perimeter. You got like your Luke Lindenmeyer, who can be basically like almost another offensive tackle. And then you've got like a Fedoni who maybe is more your receiving weapon. So that's why I do think it's important to win these battles for these guys, because people might think, oh, there's too many of them that have been signed up in a class, but there probably isn't. There's a reason they're still going after these guys, because they have a use for them. And obviously there's going to be a lot of excitement with how they use Carter Nelson this year too, who I do think I'd be kind of surprised if he doesn't burn the red shirt if he's healthy.
No, Carter, and look at how Harbaugh wore out people 2 different spots. He wore out people with 3 tight ends at Michigan, and before that he had 3 greats at Stanford. And you can just go jumbo, beat the hell out of somebody between the 20s, and then get the matchup you want with that big dude matched up against a smaller secondary member, or he's too fast for a linebacker. So, hey, it's all about your matchup choice, and I like Nebraska trying to use those athletes in space and then athletes in traffic. BC, Sire Wright is here this weekend. High-level prospect that went to USC. He's now in the portal. We know Nebraska's looking for options at the quarterback spot. And Rule was very clear about this week, that he likes the room and there's going to be some talent, and his talent there, but it's an experience thing that maybe they're getting some insurance on or looking to do so.
Yeah, he said they're going to be good, but he also said, I'd take another guy if he wants to sign up for it and compete. And that the door is very much open, I thought, through his comments for somebody like Wright, who we're talking about, who's obviously came from USC, so he's got talent, if he started off his career there, he's got something. There's guys, if he ended up picking Nebraska or ending up here, there's some talented young guys that I don't think it's a given are just going to get beat out. I think Jeremiah Charles, you give him a full fall camp, and with his tools, it could get pretty interesting with him. Malcolm Hartzog is that chess piece. You can still move around, and you don't know where he ends up. I know they wanted to kind of work him at safety, but I wonder if the plans have changed at all since the Bly Hill injury. So it is a pretty interesting conversation. I like the fact that they're just staying aggressive and saying, you know what, we got a room that can take competition. If someone else wants to join in late, let's do it if it's the right fit. So we'll see if it is. I think the fact that, he's here tells you something this close to the sort of deadline on things. So there's some interesting developments, when you think of him, and then you think of like Mekhi Nelson, the running back, who I think could, potentially reclassify and be a part of the 24 group. And, there's just a lot of stuff happening with Gramstad, obviously the quarterback joining. This staff is still looking to fill those little spaces. And when you hear Rule talk about a season, he's saying maybe we're not a team that's ready for that 14 to 16 game run yet that a playoff team has. But I should I should give our guys the benefit of the doubt and give them that idea that we can, and we should be prepared for that if that happens, and you can earn that. And so you got to have a lot of depth, and so they're going to use all 145 guys as best they can and maybe add 146 if they think that can get them that extra play.
BC, enjoy your weekend, good sir, and we'll run you down again. All
right, sounds good. Always appreciate being on. Thanks, guys.
Gotta love chatting with Brian Christopherson at Husker BC 24/7, Husker247.com. Good stuff on the recruiting weekend. We'll wind a Friday down. Tell you about the weekend edition tomorrow morning. It's Hail Varsity on a Friday, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for Hail Varsity Radio. Good, bad, or ugly, give us a review. We appreciate that feedback. Follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio for the radio Twitter handle. Can find us on different platforms as well. AM 590, Omaha's ESPN. On Twitter, can watch the replay both spots. Like and subscribe to Hail Varsity. YouTube can watch and stream the show video that way. Facebook and Twitter for KFOR Lincoln, Central Nebraska Superstation, ESPN 1460, 1550, Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island, Tri-Cities, and our friends up at Columbus, News Talk 900. Tomorrow, the weekend edition, you catch it on Hail Varsity YouTube. Cranack maybe on the Diamond, you and me tomorrow. It should be pretty good. Do you care to do a steak and a beer tonight for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup?
Oh, it's such a tough one to pick.
I know. Which makes it even more fun. Are we tied? Am I up one? Am I down one? Refresh my memory. Clausburn was moving today, so Claus will be back with us next week.
Moving south of the border or moving north of the border?
I don't know. I did not ask.
What's he moving, actually? I think about it.
He's not available today. Steven asks, is it a 7:54 show start time tonight? I don't have big plans tonight. Do you?
No.
It might be on time. 7:45. 7:45.
Ish.
Yeah.
Steak and a beer, though, with Game 6. It's back in Edmonton, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. You going to watch?
I'm sure I will. I ain't got anything better to do tonight. Edmonton's high. It's hard to go against Edmonton forcing a Game 7. I got to go with Edmonton, I think.
Okay.
You willing to go Florida?
I'll take the Panthers.
Okay.
And I'll take the 120. Minus 120 Edmonton. Yeah.
Minus 120 Edmonton?
Uh-huh.
So Edmonton's favored.
Yeah.
They have been hot.
Well, I mean, to go up 3-0 and then be on the
battle back
brink of 3-3. I'll check a bit of it out tonight. I would like to go home and grill, but I think the old wifey's going to put the old stop sign up for that. She might make me take her somewhere.
It's Friday night.
It is.
It'll only be right. I'll be probably sitting at home. I want to watch. I want to get caught up on The Boys, the new season of The Boys on Amazon. It's great. You're missing out. It's like
what's it about?
It's a half-spoofed superhero show.
Oh, yeah. Iowa Russ and Mrs. Iowa Russ have told me about it. I hear it's awesome.
Great show.
Okay.
On its face, you might look at it and go, oh, another superhero show. It's so differently done and so well done where the superheroes are kind of the bad guys.
They're degenerates.
Yes, exactly.
No, Russ and I were trying to remember his birthday dinner Saturday. And that show came back up.
Oh, it's fantastic. Highly recommend it. The new season's out. They're releasing it episode by episode, obviously. So we got that. Later this weekend, we got the second episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon. I'm looking forward to that. It might just be a weekend spent mostly on my couch. I'm either going to be on the baseball diamond here at work or on my couch, I think.
All right.
Not too bad.
All good. We'll see if the beautiful people are out in Edmonton tonight. Maybe they're not. Appreciate all of you.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. She's now, she just did a little shoot with Playboy, I saw.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just saw that on Twitter about an hour ago.
Look at you, show prepping. All right, that's Elijah. Find him on Twitter at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt _radio. Talk to you tomorrow, weekend edition, 7:45 sharp.